The late 1950s and 60s was a technology-rich time for the United States. Manufacturers were exploring new revenue streams, including contracts from the military and the fledgling space industry. Milwaukee's AC Sparkplug, later called AC Electronics, a division of General Motors, was poised to participate in the race to the moon. The manufacturing and technology company had already made considerable inroads into the aeronautics industry. In the 1950s, AC Electronics had produced the guidance systems for the Thor Intermediate Range Ballistic Missile. The company also worked on the Minuteman and Polaris guidance systems. The Titan III was another system they worked on. As NASA began to kick off its drive to land a man on the moon, they began to solicit bids from hundreds of companies who might help with their project. In 1962, NASA selected AC Electronics to be a contractor for America's manned space program. AC Electronics was responsible for building the spacecraft guidance and navigation systems for the Apollo moon landing program. AC Electronics produced the guidance systems for both the command and lunar modules. Think GPS for outer space. A team of AC Electronics top engineers collaborated with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT's Draper Lab, for the design of the navigation and guidance system. AC Electronics created the gyro-based inertial navigation platform for Apollo's guidance computer, or ACG. The inertial measurement system measures the attitude of the spacecraft, measures the velocity of the spacecraft in a defined set of coordinates, and assists in generating steering commands. It was a very integral part of getting to the moon. Oshkosh's EAA Aviation Museum Programs Coordinator, Chris Henry, has had a chance to learn about Wisconsin's connection to the moon landing firsthand.
Wisconsin, especially the area of Milwaukee, is directly tied to the Apollo missions due to the fact that a company there produced the guidance systems for the Saturn V. It was AC Electronics. AC Delco went through a number of name changes. It's on the northeast side of Milwaukee. They actually started working for the government making bomb sites. After that, in the 1950s, they were making guidance systems for the Thor missile system for the United States Air Force. A lot of people know the Apollo program and the America's space program really sort of went hand in hand with some of our ICBM missiles at the time, especially the Mercury program. So it's not a big stretch that these guidance systems that were in ICBMs would have been in some of the space rockets as well that are going to the moon. They built guidance systems, the inertial guidance systems, for the Saturn V, as well as both the command module and the lunar module that would actually go down and make the lunar landing on the lunar surface.
Nearly 8,000 people were working in the AC plants in Milwaukee in 1963. One of those, Bayview resident and Air Force contractor Albert L. Larson, acted as an interface between AC Electronics and NASA. Larson was responsible for monitoring the guidance system's functionality. It was a very important job. The Apollo astronauts' lives literally depended on it. His daughter, Nancy Larson, remembers it well.
My dad was an Air Force contract administrator working inside AC Electronics in the Air Force Plant Representative Office. And his duty was basically to have surveillance over the contractor's manufacturing processes so that the items turned out would meet the specifications in the contracts.
Though it was common knowledge that AC Electronics was working on the moon mission, much of the details had to remain secret due to the race to land on the moon.
So it was a time of intense work and an edge of fear all the time for the American people.
Larson wrote the Air Force Quality and Assurance and Inspection Plan for the Apollo spacecraft guidance system assembly and test. He also was responsible for putting together launch, flight manuals, and checklists. Many nights, Larson brought his work home with him to continue his problem solving. Nancy often did her homework while her dad was doing his.
When I was in the second grade, I left my room to take my next day's spelling test to him. Would he please quiz me on my spelling words? And he looked up from all of his papers that had spread on the kitchen table, and he gave me this quiz. And I looked at his papers, and I said, well, what's all this stuff here? He had lists and lists, big sheets of columns of words. And I said, well, what is all this? And he says, well, that's my spelling test.
Much of the emphasis on the moon landing project was placed on the astronauts themselves, though it took an entire country to pull off the race to the moon. Milwaukee-raised astronaut Captain James Lovell said he and the other astronauts had confidence in the companies that were putting the pieces in place for a successful mission.
Well, I was interested in navigation through my Apollo 8 mission, where I went to MIT, because I had learned the navigation all over again, going out of Earth orbit into the moon. AC electronics was the manufacturing area of the combination of MIT and Draper Labs, who developed the intelligence for that whole thing. Then AC Electronics, of course, put the whole thing together to make sure it worked.
It was an important time in the history of the United States. Hundreds of businesses pulled together to bring about a successful achievement. There were well-known companies like Boeing, General Electric, RCA, and Rockwell Corporation, and smaller ones like Power Shovel, Abort Guidance Systems, and AC Electronics. The thousands of people who worked at AC Electronics and other organizations throughout the country had a hand in creating technology or products that helped send men to the moon. Those employees felt a sense of ownership on the project. Much of what they developed is still used today.
A lot of the technology that has been involved in spaceflight has become common use for us, and a lot of times we don't even realize it in everyday life. Everybody thinks Velcro and Tang. Well, yeah, okay, Velcro and Tang, of course, wasn't a space program. But also, let's talk about GPS. Let's talk about satellite radio, just different innovations even in our vehicles that we drive. So a lot of that all came from the space program, our day-to-day life. And it was integrated so nicely that we didn't even realize it. So we didn't right away say, oh, this is from the space program. It just subtly went into our everyday life, and we just kind of take it for granted. But it has its roots back in the space program.
Are new technologies related to space exploration on the horizon? Could another trip to the moon or even farther be in the offing? Only time will tell.